Hello, 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 and welcome to Project Glow Sunday night self-care session. So one of you lovely ladies asked me the other day, what is glow? And the G stands for gratitude, L for love, O for ownership, and W for wisdom. And together, these are the pillars of how you really come home to yourself, you fall in love with yourself, and you actually get to a place where, I'm sure you've heard this quote before, life feels like it's happening for you rather than against you. So I'm just going to have a look at my laptop to make sure that you can hear me. So please, if you can hear me, give me some thumbs up, say hi to me in the comments box. And I just want to make sure that I've seen all of your questions and that we are ready to rock and roll with today's topic, which is should I stay or should I go? And this topic is all about should I stay or should I go in a relationship primarily, but also should I stay or should I go in a job, in a friendship, and basically the decision-making process of sticking with something or jumping ship to something else. So I'm just going to have a look on the computer, to make sure that I'm in the frame correctly, because I've got the phone upside down, back to front, so that you can actually read the sign behind me. So give me 1 second. Oh, hello. I just saw a message from you. Hello, hello, hello. Cool. How lovely to have you on board with me. I'm going to adjust you a tiny bit that I can really see you. All right. Hello, hello. Okay. Right. We are ready to rock and roll with tonight's topic. Should I stay or should I go? Where was that song from? Should I stay or should I go? All right. So I decided that this was the topic for this evening because, well, you might not know, January is divorce month. So apparently, according to the national statistics, divorces go up by 30% in January. And they've dug around in that topic in a little bit, and it turns out that there's multiple factors. So apparently January is a very stressed month in the Northern Hemisphere because there's a lack of light. Also, people don't have money, they're waiting for that first paycheck. But primarily in marriages, you've probably went to your in-laws, you've probably had to spend another Christmas with family that you don't necessarily get on with. But in January, there's that whole New Year's resolution thing, and you decide that you would rather not spend another year doing what you've done before. Now, there is nothing wrong with leaving a relationship. Let me just get that absolutely off the table. There is nothing wrong with leaving a relationship. Because at the end of the day, most of us got married really, really young to somebody that we had a lot of chemistry with, but we didn't realize that it actually requires compatibility, empathy, communication, and so on, that lots and lots of people get into relationships without, and I will put my hand up here, without having the first clue about who they are and what they need and what is really required to be in a relationship. Something I'm going to talk a lot about on my courses and on these Sunday sessions. I've already done one, so if you want to dig around in the videos, there's one called The Truth About Love, Relationships and Soulmates. And that in particular is kind of like a wake-up call to what it actually takes. Because on my Facebook feed all day, every day, I see people posting beautiful, beautiful stuff about soulmates and love and this deeply authentic, connected, intimate relationship. Well, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Most human beings on this planet do not have what it takes to be in a relationship like that. And please don't make this mistake that thinking just because you're a real nice person and you care lots and lots, you're going to be good at relationships. That is not the case. Relationships is something you need to learn. And if most of us got into a place of relationship with really, really unideal blueprints, basically, you watched the adults in your life relate to each other when you were a child, and as a result, your brain made a box saying, this is relationship. Well, that's going to get you in a whole lot of trouble because, I don't know if you know, the spiritual purpose of a relationship is to bring together two people with opposite strengths and weaknesses. So right now, if you are in a relationship, I guarantee you, and I have done this so many times, that if you take a piece of paper and write down your partner's name and then write at the bottom of it, if only my partner did this and this and that, things would be so much better. That then handed over to each other, when you read that, what your partner thinks you should become better at is actually your spiritual mission in this life. So if I look back at my relationships, if I had done that with all of my partners, I can tell you without even asking them what would have come up every single time. Well, certainly when I was much younger, I was too intense, not independent enough, because that's one of the things that I do as a habit because of my conditioning. I get into relationships too deep, too fast, too intensely, although I'd like to think that at the ripe old age of almost 44, I've certainly learned my lesson. And that brings us to lessons. Every relationship has a lesson in it. And ideally in relationships, what should happen is that I want you to imagine two little birds with opposite broken wings, which is the wounding from your childhood, hooked together so that they can fly using their strong wings. But the problem is they start picking at each other. Well, you don't do this and you don't do this, realizing hopefully at some stage, which isn't guaranteed for everyone, that actually they bring to the relationship the strength that is needed to heal their partner's heartbreak. But what do we do instead? We sit on the high tower of our strength, we cross our arms and we look down and we go, you should be more ... Not realizing that for a relationship to work, you need to come out of that tower and relate to that other person's pain or weakness as if they were a really broken, hurt child. Because that other person is not presenting their weakness to you as an adult. So the idea is that the spiritual purpose of relationship is to heal the wound of the child through the mind of the adult. But if you're really, really honest with yourself, most of us regress to exactly the same habits as we had as children, and therefore very few people actually get to realize that relationships are about healing, and that it takes a lot of different skills to actually be able to run a relationship effectively and really have that deep connection. But relationships is not the main topic tonight. The main topic tonight is, should I stay in the relationship that I've got or should I leave it? What we need to do first up front, before anybody out there in Facebook or TV land gets the idea that I am suggesting that you should stay in an abusive, physically dangerous relationship, no way. No way, no way, no way. There is absolutely no excuse whatsoever for violence or in any position that makes you physically and emotionally vulnerable. I'm going to post in the comments below something that John Gottman came up with. He called it the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse. It's all about what actually constitutes emotional abuse. Because physical abuse is easy to spot, isn't it? Somebody hits you, somebody shoves you, somebody physically harms you. That is a given and easy to see. But emotional abuse is actually not that difficult, especially if you're used to a certain amount of emotional abuse between the people that you used as a blueprint. You might not be able to actually know what's okay and what's not okay. And then we get kind of like a deeper level where actually you also need to think about whether neglect is a type of emotional abuse. I know a lot of people stay in relationships and they go, yeah, but you know, the other person hasn't done anything actually wrong. And then the question begs, well, are they doing anything right either? So emotional neglect or disconnection can be a type of emotional abuse. So what constitutes emotional abuse? Look in the comments below. I'm going to post there about John Gottman. He did some amazing work. It's about people that are contemptuous, that are critical all the time. That's a sign of a person that really has no ability to relate to you. And that's takes me on to the next level. One of the most beautiful things, and this is such a gem. You know, sometimes the real gems comes out of places that you just didn't expect at all. So many of you know is that I'm now divorced. For almost 4 years ago, my ex-husband left me. We then filed for divorce and we both got lawyers. And as you do, I had an awesome, awesome lawyer. We spoke a lot because sometimes, you know, when you're with your lawyer, the emotional stuff gets into the conversation because you have to interact maybe with your ex in court or something like that. And I said, you know, wouldn't it be amazing if somebody just handed you a piece of paper that told you exactly why your relationship went wrong? Because at the end of the day, you know, it's kind of a bit of a mystery for most people. And she said, you know what? In all my time of being a divorce lawyer, I can tell you that there's actually only one reason. And I was blown away. I was completely blown away. And I said, oh my God, please tell me straight away. And she sat me down and she said, the only reason that people end up here with me or in a divorce court is if one party isn't willing to try. And that just sideswiped me. But what turned out is that as I dug more into it, because those of you that know me, is as soon as something comes into my life that I don't know how to deal with, I go in full-on research mode. Because I just don't want to just have a solution that works for me. I want a solution that works for everybody. And so I go into massive research, both in terms of what the kind of PhD says and also what the kind of popular science says. And what slowly emerged is that it is kind of true that the only reason you end up in divorce is if one person is unwilling to work at. But it turns out that there's one more level. It also might be the case that the other person is unable to work in relationships. And the way that I can best explain it to you is, we all know that human beings can sing. Some human beings can sing better than others. But it turns out that you can learn how to sing and that actually everybody can sing. But the truth is if there was no such a thing as singing tuition, all human beings would have various abilities of singing. Now imagine if the same is true for the ability to have a relationship. Imagine if we all walked around with a little badge on our shoulder that said, you know, whether you're a 2 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. But the hard cold truth is that some people, because of the setup of who they are as a person, plus their conditioning, plus the stuff that's happened to them, are rather better at connecting. And some people, because of the trauma and the conditioning and their personality and what's happened to them and how they dealt with it, are not so good. And so what you need to be filtering for in a relationship, apart from chemistry, compatibility, you know, connection, communication, is capacity. Not all human beings have the capacity to be in a functioning, close-knit relationship. And that's where sometimes it's really, really hard, because you can be truly and utterly in love with a person. You can have the most amazing, mind-blowing chemistry. But if they are unwilling and unable to be in a relationship, you have got nowhere to go. Absolutely nowhere to go. And so when I talk to people about dating, you want to be looking for that. Unwilling and unable to emotionally meet you. And on top of that, even if there is a willingness, there has to be a commitment as well. Because the crazy thing is everybody wants this amazing relationship, you know, like, I want a closely connected soulmate relationship. Well, look at the other things in life that are really amazing, super duper, top of the list, worth having. Like a super fit body. Do you think that comes without persistence and patience and hard work and getting back up every time you fall down? Or a business? Anybody who's running a successful business, do you think that just happened, popped out of the air? No, because the truth is that actually relationships like that top level that you see in stories and movies and on your Facebook feed, they are not by chance, they are by growth. And you have to understand that some people are just not into growing into a relationship. I heard somebody amazing say is that I think it was 80% of human beings on this life, they just want to play golf and have a good time. Those are the people that want surface level, happy-go-lucky, always easy relationships. And then there's 20% of people on this planet that realize that actually deeply connected, deeply soulful, deeply spiritual, deeply authentic, deeply intimate relationships, they require work. And they require a great deal of self-knowledge, a great deal of discomfort. And most people give up at the moment where stuff gets real and you need to lean in. Really, that is hands down what I see again and again and again. Because most people live in this amazing illusion that love and relationships and soulmates should just be good. It should just all be happy. Happy all the time, fun all the time. And then as soon as the first roadblock comes along, they're like, oh God, I'm with the wrong person. No, you're just approaching this relationship in the wrong way. Taking off the table that you've already excluded relationships that are physically dangerous, emotionally abusive, and neglectful and disconnected. But the run-of-the-mill normal relationship, most people just fling it out of the window and just say, I can't deal with it, because actually they were running an illusion all the way along, that it just should be honeymoon all the time. I was working with a client that just had, I think there were 3 marriages and so many relationships, and we learned that he just left people as soon as it got difficult. And I'm like, where did you get this idea from? And he said, well, you know, I saw my parents grow up and it was just always happy, so I thought that's what relationships were. I guarantee you, your parents were screaming at each other in the basement or when you were asleep, because a real relationship is light and dark, yin and yang, up and down, and sometimes you're on the same page, or the same sort of, you're sometimes on the same wave, sometimes your waves are completely opposite. And it's how to hang in there when the going gets real and the going gets tough. And you've got to remember that just the way nature is designed, that only really happens when the honeymoon period is over. Now, please keep in mind that initial honeymoon phase is well extended if you only see each other on weekends, or if you have a long distance relationship. So the honeymoon period is still when you're in a bit of an illusion that this person that you're with is just all lovey-dovey and roses. There is no downside to them. There is no flaw in them. There is no darkness in them. And that's not really the case. Because if you look at the people you really, really, truly love, so think about a pet or a best friend, or maybe somebody in your family. The truth is that there's stuff about them that annoys the living daylights out of you, but you just pay the price of admission. And that is true love. Whether you are in love with mountain biking, or you're in love with, I don't know, computer gaming, or you're in love with shoes and clothes, you happily pay that price. And so just like in relationships, the people you truly love are the people whose price you pay completely upfront, no problem, you just take it in your stride. Think about it if you have kids. You don't have to tell anybody, but let's be honest, there is part of their personality that drives you up the wall. So it's about loving the person for all of they are, despite the things that drives you insane. But in relationships, we get into that place partly, you know, because we've been taught lies by media and fairy tales and Hollywood stories that it's all, oh, happy days. And that kind of set you up for this place where you thought that when that other person starts to do annoying things, that's the time to change the relationship. So the number one problem in this whole should I stay or should I go is, are you leaving the person because you actually have la-la land illusions about what a relationship is really, really like? That's the first one. The second one shocks me to absolute high heaven and hell. And I must say, oh, this is more the case with men than with women, and I don't yet know why, but maybe because men really suffer from the most horrific cultural conditioning not to speak about their emotions and not to want to get into a conflictual argument. But a lot of the chaps that come for coaching with me about wanting to leave a relationship, the first question I do is I sit them down and I go, have you ever sat down your spouse and told her exactly how you feel? Most of them say, no, it's obvious that it's going wrong. I'm like, no, it's not, because unless you've actually sat down with your partner and said, look, I really need to share something with you that I'm really struggling with, but I don't feel right about X, Y, Z, or whatever that is. We need to talk about our finances. I'm really having trouble connecting with you physically. It's like, unless you have a conversation, the other person may not know that there is anything wrong. So please do not leave a relationship. Well, I mean, you can leave it. There's nothing wrong with that. But for goodness sake, if you are not in a place to repeatedly, over a long period of time, hang in there and talk about how you feel and how to figure this out, then I must admit to you, you probably are the one that shouldn't be in a relationship, because that is just ridiculous. The cornerstone of relationships is communication. It is real, deep, brutal honesty delivered in a really kind, gentle way, so that you can sit down with your partner and you can really be real and honest. Because, a lot of people say to me, oh, there's no intimacy in my relationship. I hate to deliver the bad news to you. Intimacy, break it down. Into me I see, because intimacy, especially in the bedroom, doesn't just come out of great chemistry or somebody knowing, the latest Kama Sutra trick. It comes from an emotional, deep connection first. And guess how you build deep emotional connections? By being vulnerable and honest and humble and come open-hearted to your partner, even if they've been a bit nasty or you've spiraled out into difficult sort of tit-for-tat, snappy at each other's conversation. You must wave the flag, come in there, and I can coach you through this. I did a session just today, how to consciously communicate with your partner and really come at it from a place of vulnerability and of truth and connection, without looking weak and without feeling, that you're drawing the short straw, and without triggering the other person as well. There is an art to communicating in relationships. If nobody's ever sat you down, then please, if you only walk away with this from today, please, nobody taught you how to do relationships, and nobody taught you how to communicate within relationships. So maybe the problem is that the relationship is going down the toilet because you have no capacity to communicate. And there's no shame in that. But maybe don't ditch that relationship just yet. Maybe there's something that you're doing that is kind of blocking it from flourishing, I know. It's one of the nastiest things of life. We kind of think that just because we're human, we're going to be superstars at a relationship. And in this case, I think women are worse at it than men. We think that just because we can connect deeply with women, that we're going to be equally good at doing it with men. No, they are different. There is a vast difference between men and women, not in what we want, because we all want to be loved for who we are, and we all want to be in deeply connected relationships. But the way that we communicate, the way that we focus, the way that we approach our life is different. The master of that topic for me is Alison A. Armstrong. She has amazing audio tapes about the differences between men and women. We are different. And that's why knowing the differences in a relationship is paramount, because If you don't know how to communicate in each other's language, and please do not take men are from Mars and women are from Venus as your Bible. It is a great starting point. Just as The Secret is a fabulous starting point for spirituality as a whole, it is just a tiny beginning sliver of the story. But it highlights very effectively that we are different, we communicate differently, and you need to understand how to communicate with a woman, how to communicate with a man, what to say, what not to say, how we approach these topics. So again, could it be that you want to leave a relationship that is going wrong because you don't know what you're doing, So mainly when people come to me with relationship, I'm really thinking about leaving my partner. Oh, could we just have a chat about what it takes to be in a relationship? And maybe you coming to me with a dead plant because you haven't watered it, or maybe you've picked at it. My favorite saying is the grass is greener where you water it at the end of the day. Again, not to validate emotionally or physically abusive relationship, but your average relationship might just be decaying because there's something you're not doing in the communication and connection department. So many people come to me and say, but it was so good at the beginning. Yeah, because at the beginning you were probably still in the honeymoon. You hadn't yet hit that real relationship kind of barrier that happens 3 or 4 months. And that doesn't happen for years when you've got long distance or weekend relationships. And maybe you were in an illusion about what it really takes. And guess what? If you don't understand the lesson that your relationship is trying to bring to you, you can break up with this partner. And if you're not truly grateful for what you had in this partnership, if you're not truly aware how you 50-50 completely two-sidedly contributed to the demise of this relationship, even if your contribution was just by withdrawing and not leaning in, then guess what? You're going to go dating and you're going to repeat that same pattern over and over and over again. Because every relationship comes with a lesson, a blessing, and a gift. If you look in the videos on the Project Glow video page here in Facebook, there is a whole hour-long session that I did, how to find the lesson, the blessing, and the gift of your challenge, and how you need to be absolutely clear on that before you want to go into the next situation. And this is what I do straight up with anybody that comes to me that wants to leave the relationship is, if you are not 100% clear about what this relationship has brought to you, what you both did or didn't do to break it apart, you're just going to step into the next situation. You're going to get wildly attracted to someone. You're going to get into the honeymoon with them. And as soon as that honeymoon is finished, you're going to be facing the same things. So could it be that you're not just with the wrong person, that you're looking at that relationship the wrong way? So we've covered a couple of the really big humdingers of this topic. I'm just going to have a look here on my screen what kind of questions you have. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Thank you so much for being with me on this topic. It is a big topic. And you know what? One of the ladies asked me, is this still relevant for when you're single? Absolutely, it's relevant because you're going to be in a relationship in the future. Also, are you thinking of leaving or sticking to a job? Are you thinking of leaving or sticking with a friend? It's all the same kind of concepts, Let me just have a look. Lucy. Hi, Lucy. Lucy says, Steph, can you please explain this lean in thing? Absolutely, absolutely. It's a great question. Okay, so leaning in is about not going into your coping mechanisms of withdrawing when things get really tough. Okay, so you're in a relationship, there's kind of an issue that's come up. It would be so much easier to either go and bitch with your friends, your best friends, or kind of stuff it down into food, distract yourself into Netflix, and kind of just hope that it'll kind of just go away. or what lots and lots of people do in their relationship, they just kind of lose themselves in the hum of everyday stuff, mortgage, the dishes. And what's even more dangerous is if you're in a partnership with children, because it's so easy just to kind of like be the parents and stop being lovers and partners because there's something else to focus on. That's why in relationships, in particular partnerships, if you are married, oh my God, you should be doing this regularly, is come together and talk about the relationship. If you think about it, every single business has briefings, has Monday morning meetings, has meetings with the boss, has meetings where you kind of sit down, reviews, quarterly reviews. You should all have a monthly review in your relationship. Not where you then fling shit at each other, but where you just go to nurture that space between you. So what I mean with lean in is not leg it as soon as the crap hits the fan. Also, lean in means being a team member to a partnership. A lot of human beings are in this place, in this kind of perspective of what does that relationship give to me? Well, what are you giving to the relationship? Because it's not all about your needs. It's about coming together, two people that have opposite strengths, opposite weaknesses, that come to the relationship wounded from their past. Not on a great blueprint with maybe hardly any kind of relationship skill whatsoever. I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, it's kind of incredible that anybody has a relationship. But if you look at most people's relationships, really, there's very, very few really good ones. Most people are living this half-life or and when you start talking to people about how little physical intimacy they have, it's really heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking to see that most of us are not in this beautiful place of connection because we don't have the capacity. We're either ourselves unwilling and unable, or we are with a partner who's unwilling and unable, or like for most people, you're just in this quietly desperate place where you just think somehow magically it's going to fix itself. Or, and I have to admit that this is a lot, is it's kind of like better than being alone, and so you're just kind of hanging in there. So, yeah. Leaning in means being able to stand the fire of your relationship, because real relationship will require you to be a bit of a, what should we call it, superhero, because you need to lean in when everything in you is screaming to leg it, to get out. It's like, I know this is a bit outdated, but a lot of you stood in a church. I stood in a church and we said for better or for worse. And for most people, they're kind of living this whole just for better things. And the moment it gets inconvenient, or the moment we've been in a rut for a while, this clearly is not working, I'm with the wrong person. Yeah, time to lean in. Time to really eat some humble pie and be committed to the space between you rather than just whether you're comfortable or not. Of course, there is a limit to that. There absolutely is a limit. But not just a limit to you enduring it, but if people come here and they say, oh, my partner's been really, really critical for a long time. Have you sat down and had a real relationship talk? Most of you don't. You may need some counseling. I'm not the biggest fan of counseling in terms of resolving relationship issues, and I did study psychology, so I'm of that field and of that track, because unfortunately most modes of psychology bind you into listening. But basically a lot of counseling just ends up being a slamming match with an umpire who gets paid by the hour. For you to step into a different space in your current relationship, you need new information, Because if you just run around the same hamster wheel, guess what? Nothing is going to happen. You're going to have the same slanging matches over and over, or the same disconnection, or the same problems in the intimacy department. You need new information, because there is nothing wrong with you and there is nothing wrong with your partner. You are just basically both suffering from not having been taught how to be in a truly, deeply, soulfully connected relationship. And that's why, God, I hope that somewhere along the line you invest in educating yourself about relationships. It is the most crucial type of investment you can make after investing in yourself. And that's why you've heard me say it before, for anybody that teaches you about self-love, if they're not teaching you about relationships or how to really understand and trust the universe, they're telling you a third of the story. Because for most people, they think, oh, you know, just getting in a place where they're really okay with themselves and they love themselves. Guess what? The moment trouble arrives in your relationship or life delivers you a curveball, that self-love goes right out of the window. So please educate yourself on relationships. I don't even care where you start. I mean, I'm going to put some books in the comments below, or go watch my video on the truth about love, relationships, and soulmates. It is a treasure trove on where to start in terms of just the basics. You don't need to have a PhD, and you don't need to be in therapy for years and years and years and years. You know, it's kind of like the 80-20 rule. 20% of new knowledge will give you an 80% effect on your relationship. But please, don't live in that la-la place where you think that just by being human, you're good at being in a relationship. Okay, thank you, Lucy. That was an amazing, amazing question. Let me see what other questions you guys have. Thank you, another question by Lucy. How do we manage our emotions and expectations during the honeymoon period, or even speed up this phase to the real part? Awesome, awesome question. So I'm sure before you've seen me, I have a pad. I'm going to take a picture of the pad and post it in the comments, where I list the pros and cons of everything. Because if you are not completely aware that every single thing you experience, every person, every event has equal light and dark, you are in a honeymoon phase. So what I say to people, as soon as you meet someone, ASAP, you write down the upside that you think there is to being with that person. And that can be love his legs, love his eyes, love this, love that. If there is nothing on the con side, the downside, you are in the honeymoon. Because only when the downside equals the upside and you are completely aware that this person is not going to complete you, is not going to make you whole, is not always going to be your knight in shining armor or your savior queen, because they will have as many downsides and upsides, and that you're willing to commit to this person despite those downsides, and ready not to slam them on their downsides, but to hold their downsides and really incorporate in yourselves that that person has struggles that you have the answer to. And also become aware straight up from the front that the same is true for you. You have as many upsides as downsides. And that that needs to come out at the front. One of the big criticisms I have about a lot of dating books is they teach you how to date with your false self. So it's like, walk like this, talk like this, text like this, sound like this. You know, it's like, well, where does the right, true you come into the equation? It's like, you're just going to pretend to be this person for 3 months and then whip out your true self. And then the person goes, what the hell is going on? And you're like, well, this is who I really am. No. And I know the big mistakes that a lot of ladies make. They go on dates and it's all about, they come back from the date and they know all about who the guy is, where he went to school, what he likes for dinner, what's his favorite food, what's his best friend. And I go, and did you share anything about yourself? And they go, Because your job is not only to impress the other person, Your job is also to make them aware pretty upfront that you have as much light as dark as them, and that you need to have the courage to be yourself, because otherwise you're kind of perpetuating the honeymoon. So thank you. I can talk a lot about this more, but this is more the first module of my 8-week online course, which, by the way, is going to start on Valentine's Day, which is around the corner. The first module, module 1 of How to Fall in Love with Yourself, is busting your illusions. And that's what a lot of people suffer from. And that's also a huge part in, that's the first thing I talked about in Should I Stay or Should I Go is do you have unrealistic expectations of this person or this relationship to complete you, to just be everything? Because everything has light and dark equally. Okay, let me check out. Thanks, Lucy. Those are some awesome questions. Oh, there's another one, again from Lucy. If men are less likely to open up and talk about things, is there a way we can open the space so that they are more likely to talk? Wow, cool question. A practice or habit to make communication easier so it seems less scary to talk about things. Woo! That's a big topic. You know what? I may just make that the topic of next Sunday night. So I can't talk too much about it right now because that's a big topic. But number one, I would say you need to understand how men and women are different. You need to understand how to communicate in a conscious way rather than kind of like out at people and snap when you're fed up. And I suppose the next thing that comes to mind is having difficult talks about the relationship is much easier when your love tank is full already. So if you actually manage to create a great rapport and a great connection. And by the way, that also depends on your love language. So I'm going to post in the comments below the 5 love languages test, because sometimes people really kind of miss each other in the relationship because one person expresses their love by hugs and the other person expresses their love by words. So you really need to be on the page and be aware of your partner's love language. It's a huge thing where people can just miss each other. But I would also say is it's never what you say, it's how you say it. So a lot of people are afraid of conflict or really being honest about who they are because they haven't been taught how to say it in a way that is graceful so that the other person can really receive you. Because there's a way to say things, if you really need to talk about a difficult topic, there's many elements. I will do that next week on Sunday, conscious communication in partnerships, because you need to have important conversations. And also, I think, with men in the relationship, what we talked about earlier, you need to create a safe space for them to be authentic. And that has a lot to do with the fact that women also have not been taught a lot about how to be in their divine feminine. And that's a lot about how they feel, communicating from a space of feeling rather than thinking. And, it's like if as a woman you create a safe space where not only you are authentic about how you truly feel, but also highlight that, how people make you feel, and you create a safe space, then although the man that you're in a relationship with maybe hasn't had the blueprint from his background and has been culturally conditioned not to connect with his emotions, you can foster that and you can build a safe environment because, men are awesome, and they're human beings as well. So human beings just don't open up if they don't feel that there's the right environment and that they're going to be safe and that they won't be judged. Because that's another part of this lean in aspect is like, all of us are scared that if you say, hey, I really feel bad about that, the other person is so unaware, so not in control of their baggage that they go, well, fuck you, blah, 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 blah. You need to prove to the other person that when they come to you with their stuff, that you are solid, that you've parked your ego out the door until you've heard their stuff. Your ego can come to the party in the next conversation. But right there, first of all, both of our job, even if, men or women, is to hold the space to create this beautiful, rich sanctuary where the other person feels safe to open up about who they truly are. So I wrote down here a couple of notes. So this topic of should I stay or should I go is important. Well, it's important, I listed it in the description, that if you're thinking about going, you really need to make that decision from a really grounded, soulful place. Also, most people flip-flop, and then one day they want to leave, one day they don't want to leave. Please, I beg you, I do 30 minutes for free with every single person. If you are in a position right now where you're thinking about leaving, let's just have a chat, because the last thing I want for you is that you make this decision from a place of illusion, from a space of not realizing that actually part of the demise of the relationship is you, because then you will just recreate that next thing. You need to come at that from a place that you're really grateful for who this person is and how they are and the things that they've come to the table with, and the lesson, the blessing and the gift that this has brought to you. A lot of people make the big mistake that when they're starting to think about leaving a relationship, they ask their friends and their family, and oh dear, I love your friends and your family, but they are not the right people to talk to, because they will just come at it from their perspective, with their opinions. That might not be right for you. You really need to talk about your issues with somebody that comes from a neutral third party, and I'm going to say educated and committed to bringing new information to you. Because the reason you're in this mess is not because there's anything wrong, but because either one or both of you do not have the necessary education and skills to create a beautiful connected relationship. Also, this is also relevant that if you've gone to counseling and you found that you're still in the same place, I would say, please be mindful that counseling is about talking about your problems. It's a space that fosters talking about what's going on. It is not equipped 9 out of 10 times to give you new information and new learning that you can build, actually build and grow this relationship that you really want. So I'm going to post in the comments below a checklist that I would love for you to go through. Read that checklist that you need to be clear on if you want to, decide on whether to stay or go. And please take me up on that 30 minutes. Even if you go no further in your coaching with me, I'd really love for you to make that decision from a grounded, graceful, calm, and really educated perspective. The massive misconception that there is, I'm just reading my notes here, the hugest misconception that there is that when a relationship goes wrong, you're with the wrong person. And that just isn't the case. Relationships go wrong for a multitude of different aspects. But thinking that getting into another relationship is all going to make it okay will just set you up for more heartbreak and difficulty. And sometimes actually staying in the relationship and leaning in and working at it is a really, really good idea. But I will put the caveat on it that it's not something you need to do forever. You certainly shouldn't be doing if it is emotionally, not safe, if it is emotionally damaging you, if it's emotionally neglectful as well. And certainly never, ever, ever, if it's physically violent and not in your best interest. But for most relationships, the truth is that every other relationship is going to bring you challenges and hassles too, and that the vast likelihood that you're in this relationship is that both of you contributed to the meltdown, and you really, really need to own your part of that before you think you can create anything different with another person, because the same stuff and the same patterns is going to come up again and again and again. So, realistic expectations, being really honest whether you're not part of the problem, and learn, and then also get guidance on how to lean in, because that is the cornerstone of a relationship, the ability to not just run away, disconnect, blame someone else, or, just think that, oh, it'll fix itself. It won't fix itself. You need to lean in, really become aware of your contribution, their contribution, and then make an assessment whether the other person is really willing, and then committed to being willing, and able, because a lot of people are not able, and they may not want to do the necessary learning or the necessary work or the necessary commitments. Some people want just superficial relationship, and there's nothing wrong with that. But those really deep, soulful, functioning relationships, they require a lot of self-knowledge, a lot of self-control, a lot of empathy, a lot of humility, and a lot of wide open, vulnerable heart, coming to this space together and learning how to maintain, nurture, and grow that space in between you. All right, I'm going to have a look if there is anything else that I can answer for you. Great questions. Let's have a look. Thank you, all you guys who are on this call with me. I'm so passionate about this topic because, relationships, it's what we all want at the end of the day, and none of us know how. None of us have been taught. And of course, you know that I go on and on about this, that self-love is the cornerstone of relationships. You need to know who you are. You need to understand how you move in relationships. What are your triggers? What is the sole purpose of you being in that relationship? So self-love comes before anything else, because any relationship is only as strong as the weakest link. I'm going to have a quick look. Hello, everybody. Yeah, Emily, I hear you. Fear of being alone. Lots and lots of people just stick in relationships because it's easier to be in a halfway bad relationship than being alone. Leaning in, great. Love tank, yes. I don't know who came up with that idea of the love tank, but really, the love tank is something that you build up every single day. So I'll find that concept. It's about, really making time for true connection every day, really making time for appreciation every day, really understanding the other person's love language and truly communicating in that love language. So it's like every single day you build up this jar of connection, your love tank. So then inevitably when the difficult things do come along, there's so much more buffer to keep you going, But a lot has to do with conscious communication. I can go on and on and on about conscious communication. It is not what you say, it is how you say it. How you say it that the other person can hear you. How you say it to maintain the integrity of that relationship and the bond. How to make sure that you really don't trigger the other person till thy kingdom come by kind of judging them and pointing them the finger at them. So next week I'll do that. Conscious communication in relationship and partnerships. It is one of the key things of all time. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? I don't think I have any more on here. Let's see. All right. Well, that is it. We're almost done with our hour. Thank you so much. As I said before, I do 30 minutes free connection call with anybody if you are in a position where you feel that you need to make a decision on should you stay or should you go, especially if there's children involved in that dynamic. Please come have a chat with me, even if it doesn't go further into coaching. I'd love to refer you on to some really good books and to some amazing people out there who are doing really good relationship work. I need to give credit to an amazing coach, a colleague of mine called Jason Gaddis. He has a podcast called The Smart Couple. Really, it just cuts through all of the BS that is out there. And he does a lot of calls with his wife, Ellen, about what a real relationship actually looks like. Because Too many things out there in the world at the moment are selling you this crap story about, all the way from Disney to Mills and Booms to every kind of like holiday rom-com. Relationships are hard. They're not impossible, but they're not easy. And if you come to relationships without any skill, with a mountain of baggage and absolutely no awareness, then you will not be able to step into that sanctuary that you need to build between the two of you from a place of true authenticity, open-hearted empathy, and a real ability to stand there and lean in when it gets real and it gets tough and it gets inconvenient. That's really what it takes at the end of the day. Well, that's been me. Thank you so, so much for being here with me. I'm going to be hanging around for a little bit longer, so keep posting your comments. Also, always, if you don't want to ask a question publicly on the comments, private message me, and more importantly, keep those awesome questions coming, because more than anything else, I want to make these sessions super relevant for you and super able to apply them straight away in your life. So the overall question for tonight is, should you stay or should you go? Well, there is no right or wrong answer to that, other than, are you making that decision from a place of not having unrealistic expectations, that a person is only one-sided, or a relationship is only one-sided, or it should always be nice, it should always be easy, or that another relationship is just going to be nice, easy, up all the time. Because that's not the nature of relationships. Also, that means that you really don't know anything about relationships, which is number two. The grass is greener on the side that you water it. It's really important to come to a place of like a reality check, If we all had a badge about how capable we were in a relationship, if we had them on our shoulders, how capable are you, And also, really coming to the place where you make a really educated decision on whether your partner is willing and able to meet you in that place. Because you might be an 8 and they might be a 2. And no matter how much you love them, you're not going to have a hope in hell of having a functioning relationship with them. And you know what? When is the time to pull the plug? When you've really exhausted all of these things that make sure that you're not making it from an unrealistic place, or you're just running into something else that you think is going to be the nirvana and the highlight. But also really saying, have I done enough? Have I lent in? Have I really given this all I've got? And that is, should I stay or should I go? Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next week on the Sunday night self-care session. I'm going to do that one about conscious communication in relationships and what it really takes to have deeply connected, soulful communication with your partner, even if you have to talk about something difficult. That's it from me tonight. Thank you so, so much. Keep in touch. Keep your questions coming. Take care. Lots of love. Take great self-care of yourself. Bye-bye.